Well, hello there, Internet. Welcome back to the BVB Army Hearts to Hearts. My name is Ruth.
And I'm Nicole.
And welcome, guys, back. So I first have to put this announcement before we get into this topic for today for this episode. So we have a very special guest joining us later in this conversation, the one and only Chris Biersack. If you guys don't know who he is, he's obviously Andy's father. So he's going to come and join us in this conversation to give us his little point of view of interaction with fans through social media. We're talking about all social media platforms. So he will come and join us later. In the meantime, we are going to discuss our experience with social media and with the BVB Army. So at least for me, through social media, this is just from my point of view. I've definitely met a lot of amazing fans through the BVB Army. I met this wonderful Nicole right here through the BVB Army. Thanks to Chris again. We hit it off when we did that video series for the BVB Day and stuff. And also throughout that footage too, like I met amazing, wonderful fans. But I think a lot of them I met through is Twitter, surprisingly. Could just be me. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like a lot of the BVB Army live in Twitter.
I would agree with you on that.
Okay.
I would definitely agree.
It's just like, I mean, don't get me wrong, Twitter is a cool place. I'm just like, I think that's our home for the BVB Army.
And I 100% agree with you on that, just because having other platforms I've connected way more with BVB fans on Twitter than I have on Instagram or Facebook.
I feel like
I don't know
dead right now. Yeah, I feel like Twitter is definitely a lot of the fans where we obviously talk to each other, DM, like retweet and etc. I have met a couple through Instagram here and there, but fans prefer it through Instagram. Other fans prefer it through Twitter. TikTok, it's coming a little bit. I've been seeing a lot of more creators who are fans of the BVB and Andy Black and making some videos. So I enjoy watching their content and following them. So
yeah, I've definitely met quite a few on TikTok. Actually, I don't know if any one of them like have followed me or not, or really, but like they just happen to notice like tattoos or merch, and they're like, oh,
right.
I love Blackfield Pride. It's kind of all it's been for me on TikTok anyway. I feel like more socializing definitely comes through Twitter and Instagram.
For sure. And I do want to give a shout out to a lot of the fans who I have met, just amazing fans who I've met through mostly through Twitter, a couple through Instagram. For one, that is not what I'm looking for, is Sherry, who has an account for all things BVB. She posts like a lot of reposts of Andy's photos, the band, and news and merch. Love her, by the way. And by this time this video is uploaded, I think our video on my channel will be up, where she challenged me to name as many Blackfield Pride songs in each album. I tried. So another shout out to Laura Watson. She has a YouTube channel here too. She does a lot of content of BVB. She is really good at like giving you guys all the details for BVB and giving updates. And obviously her favorite BVB member is Cece. So I definitely love her Cece makeup and stuff and the twists she puts to it. Chloe May, she's in the UK. She actually helps run the Facebook Blackfield Pride's Facebook that Dan does. So she's amazing too. She has a YouTube channel here too. And she does a lot of react videos. Catherine, who was in my BVB fan stories. She's amazing. She's like, how do I describe? She's like an amazing fan of BVB. She absolutely loves Andy and BVB, and I can see her counting down to the concert. Like she's like ready for it. Like I think one of her posts on Instagram is like, "Help me choose an outfit to wear for the concert." I'm just laughing so hard. So, Catherine, if you're watching this, I really hope they play Unbroken for you. I know you've been on petition about that with Blackfield Pride playing Unbroken for the first time live. I really hope they do it for you, or for all the fans who want to have that song Unbroken played. So I swear, okay. Catherine, every time I hear Unbroken or think of Unbroken, I think of you now. So Ren, who, oh my God, guys, she was also in my other series. Most of these fans have been in my movies, but Ren, if you guys don't know her, go look her up. Ren Rum, I think is her username. She's like the queen of cosplaying of Andy, like with the war paint. I swear to God, it's beautiful. Yeah, it's just some other amazing fans out there. Sorry, I couldn't mention them all, but there's just so many fans out there. It's a huge community, and I don't think a lot of people realize that how big of a community we are. But if you've been in the community, we are 100% like supportive of each other and like family. So
I know, and I think that's what I love most about just finding other Black Veil Brides fans, online or in person. It really doesn't matter, they're just one of the most welcoming people. I feel like the kindest people. I mean, I would love to give a shout out to everyone that's been nice to me. But I mean, there's so many of you guys, and so shout out to all BVB fans. For anyone that I've talked to who's just been so sweet. I love talking to other people and learning their love for the band, and it's just been such a crazy experience.
I feel like we should make this somehow later in the future. You know how they have like Comic-Con and like all these other meetup venues and stuff?
Yeah,
we should literally have a BVB Army like con, like a venue, because we're all spread out everywhere.
So that would be so cool.
Just meet up one place, and like we could have panels for people who like do fan art and then like cosplay and just like any other things, like breaking down lyrics, playing games, just meeting the whole BVB Army. Like, just think how fun that would be.
It would actually be so amazing. I've been to those conventions before too, and I just think that they're so perfect. It's a great way for people just to get together, hang out, meet new friends. I think it'd be great. I wish something like that could happen, honestly.
I've talked to all these friends, including you, and I know we're in different states. I know I talked to some fans in the UK, and there's one who I think is in Italy and Europe. I'm just like, I want to meet you guys. I literally just want to meet you and just hug you and stuff, because you guys are so awesome. And I'm just like, can we just like,
I know. Why do we all have to be so spread out?
I know. And maybe it's just me, but like, well, I feel like the fans in LA have a little bit more of an advantage, but like for me, it's like, oh, I live in Washington. I feel like I'm the only Black Veil Brides fan in Washington, at least in my area. I know it's not true, but sometimes it feels like it.
I definitely see where you're coming from. I get that. I feel that same way, And then it's like when I go to their shows, and I'm like, there's all these fans, I'm like, where did you come from? Like, and it's funny.
My people. Home. So
a lot of I live in Colorado, and a lot of fans actually that I do meet are not from Colorado. They've traveled. I met someone who traveled from New Mexico. I've met another person that I think traveled from Las Vegas, all over. One lady traveled from Kansas. So I'm like, wow. It's so crazy, it's cool though. Like, all their tickets sold out, so they bought Colorado's tickets, and I think that's what's amazing, the dedication is what I love.
Seriously. And like through social media, I feel like I find a lot of BVB fans who do their own things, like artists and stuff. Like there was one fan, I can't remember her top of her name, who's done amazing artwork, who just opened her commissions, and I'm like, I love your work, please commission. And then like I got her piece, which is amazing, which I will show later on. But I'm like, that their own music, jewelry, merch, etc. It's just like, you guys are awesome. Like the BVB Army is like amazing overall.
I would doesn't have to say the BVB Army is the one fan base that I feel like stands out above any other fan base. It really does.
Good to see you both. Before I start answering questions or start yapping my mouth, I wanted to say hi to both of you.
Hello. Nicole and I were just talking like how big the fan base and we also pointed something out, like this is from our point of view and maybe it's from your point of view too, like how through all the social media platforms from Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, we almost feel like a lot of the BVB Army kind of lives in the Twitter world. That's where a lot of us interact, retweet, know each other. Like there's some on Instagram and a little bit on TikTok, but I feel like the home base is Twitter itself. So yeah. And
I would agree with that. I've only had Twitter, but then Amy and Andy have told me about Instagram and Facebook stuff that they do. So I would agree with that.
Just from my experience, like I will admit, when I first started the whole social media thing on my YouTube channel and everything, I did have a Twitter set up. I just never went on it.
Yeah, we started out with MySpace, and that was that was when We were selling Black Veil Brides merchandise literally out of our house when Andy moved to Los Angeles. We would order it from a local t-shirt maker that was a friend of mine. And then all the orders were going into what they call Big Cartel, which was some merch, kind of like a Depop store, but for new merchandise. And so a lot of the merch that you've seen out there, even some that Amy and I wore during the when we were in Los Angeles for the 2018 Roxy shows, we wore some of the very first t-shirts that Andy had when he moved out to Los Angeles to keep it going. And so we had a home address, a fan mail address, and we were taking all the interactions off of MySpace, notifying people there of where to get the merch and everything else. But we were also taking fan mail at home. And that was way before I even had Twitter.
Yeah, that was my next question. Is like, do you remember like the year you actually joined Twitter and stuff and started interacting with fans through the BVB?
The only reason I remember is because I just got one of those Twitter anniversaries.
Yeah, I saw that.
It said 12 years. So I was like, okay, 12 years. But I remember I had MySpace prior to that. And I have to admit, I've never been at the top. I've never been at the forefront of this stuff. I've always been following other people. But I found that Twitter, for the most part, it was the medium or the social media platform that best allowed me to get information out there about the band, to share and send links of videos and stories. A lot of rock media websites would send stories out. I'd see it, and then I would share that. Videos that fans made themselves, like your videos, let other people see them. Those were the things that I would scour YouTube. I would just Google the news about the band, and then I would send that news to everybody else. And this all kind of goes back to when Andy was a kid. When Andy was a kid, he used to send via MySpace all kinds of letters or messages to bands, and no one ever responded. Nobody. He never got a response from anybody. He would then send letters to people, and he never got a response. One time he got a response, not from a band, but from the guy who was the artist of the album cover. And this guy had done some really cool art for the Misfits. And Andy was so jacked up about that. I just remember how excited he was when he told me about it and everything else. And that's when it hit me. The effort that you would make to acknowledge somebody for supporting you and showing their support for you, and particularly in social media, wasn't all that great. It was just simply a matter of putting yourself out there and doing it. We kind of made a pact when Andy was coming up with the Cincinnati version of Black Veil Brides, that when he moved to Los Angeles, that we would take his fan mail and we would respond to anybody who sent fan mail to us here at the house. And then we would send him the fan mail. We did not want his address. Number one, it wasn't like a designated address that he thought he was going to have for years. In those days, it was this apartment, live there as long as you can, find a better apartment, that kind of stuff. When they first started out, it was the cheapest, cheesiest apartment in Hollywood they could find. And then it kind of branched out to, moving from here to there. But I would actually ship the merch. People would make orders. I'd ship the merch. I had contests. If you guys, I don't know how long you've been fans, but I used to have fan contests back in the very beginning where if people would show themselves with the merch or wearing the merch or whatever on social media, they would be one of the fans who would be in the contest, and I'd do a drawing and I would give away autographed items that Andy would sign and that we'd send out. And that was like in the 2009, 2010, particularly as the first album was just about to come out. I was doing a lot of that.
I actually have a question for you, Nicole, and you, Chris. Like, how did you guys discover each other through social media, out of curiosity?
I'll admit, when I think I don't really remember if it was one of my tattoos or not. I think it just probably appeared on maybe one of your home pages on Twitter, because at first I was so confused because there's lots of people that lots of people that will put down Andy Biersack's name as their
Right.
Twitter name, and I get so confused. So when I saw your name, I was like, I don't know who this person is, so
Of
I was
course.
so confused.
Well, there was almost everybody for a certain period of time. Everybody's first name was their real first name.
Yeah.
And then their second name was either Six or Biersack or Black. One of the three. So there's no way you would assume that the person that was talking to you was in fact related to the guy. To this day, people don't think that. I have TikTok and YouTube address that still have Biersack on them, and there are people that are like, "What do you know? I know this band. I've been following them for 10 years, man. You don't know anything." They'll put that in the comments, and I don't. Just kind of clarifying. That's a lot of times what I do.
Going back to like people, I guess, fans realizing like you are you, Chris, like you're Andy's dad. Like the same situation happened with me, Nicole, because like he commented on my YouTube video, and I even told Chris, it's like, "Oh, Chris Biersack comment on your video," and I was like, I literally thought it was just someone else who made the name. And then I looked more into it, and I'm like, and you can actually still find the comments on my video where it's just like, "Oh my God, you're actually Andy's dad. Hi." So, and it's funny because like, I think when people realize that you are you, Chris, like on TikTok or especially on TikTok, I've been realizing now, and on Twitter, they're like, they kind of have like a fangirl freak out moment. Like, "Oh, Chris Biersack has followed me."
Here's the other thing is that I've been on tour with them many times, and I've sat in on meet and greets in just about every city in the country. So I run into people and talk to people at the shows all the time. The one thing about it is that people are like, "What are you stalking comments and everything?" It's like, no. The reason that I'm on social media is I like to recognize and acknowledge the people who are saying kind and positive things about Andy and the band. And so I feel like if you put yourself out there, especially when you're a Black Veil fan, when you, and even at maybe not so much now, but for years, putting yourself out there and saying, "I love this band," was inviting people to, dump on you on social media. And that wasn't fair, and it wasn't right. And it was wrong. And it was kind of silly. I mean, if you've got any modicum of sense, you know that the things that we read on social media from a lot of people who hated the band are just garbage. And most people that listen to the band or go see them play live walk away thinking, "Oh yeah, that's a good rock band." They're heavier than most of their idols were. But the bands that Andy loved, hard rock bands, they're heavier than every one of those bands. They're certainly not a pop band. Nothing against pop bands, by the way. I think a lot of it just has to do with we changed the game and we changed the expectations of what heavy metal is. Personally, I think that Black Veil has had a huge impact on rock. And I can't think of any hard rock band in the 21st century, in particular, any band who's come along since 2010, as far as the public consciousness, that has had more impact on women checking out and loving hard rock than Black Veil.
I completely agree with that statement because I was one of those girls. Hi.
Right.
I don't know about you, Nicole, but like growing up for me, I always listened to pop and a little bit of R&B, but mostly pop. And it wasn't until like I saw Knives and Pens and was like, "This is amazing." And then I learned about more. And then that's when I started going into like, the history of rock. And like, I knew who Twisted Sister was, Kiss and Motley Crue were, but I just didn't really listen to them. So I actually have to give a huge thanks to Black Veil for like getting me into the rock, because that's how I was like, these bands are amazing. And then I saw the connections and I'm like, these are amazing.
Black Veil, in the earliest infancy, in the 2000s Cincinnati version, started out as kind of a 69 Eyes. I don't know if you guys know who 69 Eyes is, or Wednesday 13's band Murder Dolls. Started out as kind of that kind of a band, a misfitsy. But really, when Black Veil started in Los Angeles, which is the Black Veil that we all know, which was in 2009, they were always a hard rock band from the day that Jinx joined the band. I mean, when it was Jinx and Jake, there was no question what direction the band was going to take as far as the type of music they were going to play. Andy was smart enough, even at the age of 18, to say, "I have to take advantage of the fact that I have met and I have convinced these incredibly talented musicians who are, in some cases, 6-7 years my senior and have been doing this for a while. I have to convince them that this is the right thing to do. And therefore, if we have to make compromises. And Andy's compromise was to go in a little heavier direction than he probably originally intended. Their compromise was they had to accept the fact that their leader was 6-7 years their junior. He's the leader. He's the one that's running the show. And those guys accepted that because Andy had that kind of a personality. He had that kind of charisma that everybody just, followed him. They knew that he was a worker and that he cared about every little detail. And they realized that if he said he was going to do something or something was going to get done, he'd work tirelessly to make sure that it happened, including preparing for all the tours and anything else related to the band that needed to be done.
One question I had for you, Chris, is going back to like interaction with the fans of the BVB Army. Is like when you first started out Twitter those 12 years ago, and I guess fans started recognizing like, oh, you're Chris Biersack. Did it get to a point where it was overwhelming, like all these fans like swarming you and like asking all these questions, or like, oh, tell Andy this, tell the band that, or
yeah, I mean first of all, it's not overwhelming. It's very it's kind of like what you want more than anything when your kid is in this industry is you want people to pay attention to what he's doing and to care about it. And then I say things on Twitter that people twist around and they don't like, and they want to say negative things about me. And, at first I was a little put off by that, but you just kind of learn to deal with it, and it doesn't really matter. Ultimately, what it all boils down to is my job, the way I see it with regard to the fans, is I'm here to share as much information about the band as I possibly can for anybody who wants it. And I would say that I've been doing a pretty good job of that over the last 12 years, to the point where I still have 125,000 people that follow me on Twitter. That doesn't necessarily mean that I think that I'm somebody special, because the reason they follow me is because Andy's my son. So I know that. I'm not stupid enough to think, well, look at me, I've got 20. I realize that, but I also think that people wouldn't follow me if I wasn't giving them some content, or if I wasn't out there looking on Twitter for positive comments that people make, or pictures or drawings or artwork or whatever it is, tattoos, anything related to Black Veil. If I wasn't out there liking them or giving people a thumbs up, or sharing my own pictures, or saying thank you so much for your support of Andy and the band all these years, I've noticed it, or just basically just communicating with people, if it's just very briefly. And I know that it's not that big of a thing for somebody to get a like or a thumbs up or whatever. But I always feel like, I just remember when Andy got so excited because this guy he was just an artist. Not just an artist, but he was not with the band, is what I was trying to say. And he wrote back to Andy thanking him for saying nice things about his art. And then Andy was so excited to tell me that the artist for the Misfits or whatever, sent him an email and was communicating with him. That really stuck with me. And ever since that day, whether it be the physical mail, the fan mail, which we don't get nearly as much as we used to, because I think it just kind of, social media makes it easier to communicate with people now than it ever did. We still get enough that Amy sends out, a box of mail over the span of a month. She'll send out, close to 100 pieces of mail over the course of a month. But that's what's funny about that, is we used to get like 20 pieces of mail a day for a while, so that doesn't mean the interest in the band is waning. It just means that I'm probably less inclined to put the email address, the fan mail address out there all the time. I believe that there are other ways for people to have their message seen and heard now, so we don't necessarily need. Andy's got the show. He's got the Andy show, and he's got Patreon, and people can send stuff to that all the time. And he reads their letters and shows their gifts and stuff on his show. So people do it that way all the time. We still get it, and we still hold on to stuff, and we still give it to Andy. Sometimes we get stuff for the other band members. We tell people, hey, I can't guarantee it's going to get to them because I don't know when I'm going to see them. I know that I'm going to see Andy, even when he's not on tour. I'm going to see him probably once or twice a year outside of that, when he flies into Cincinnati. but we still try our best to make sure that everybody's piece of mail, number one, is acknowledged. We send them a reply, unless of course it's like, if you sent me a letter every day here at the house, I probably wouldn't send you a thank you or a confirmation letter every single day. I would send you one and I thank you so much for that, but I'm probably not going to keep sending you a new letter every day. We do have some fans that are so excited about the band that they will send us a letter every day. We also have fans who send us the most bizarre, crazy letters you could possibly imagine. I don't even know what to make of them. People have, like we'll get people that'll send us Bibles to the house because they want Andy to atone for his sins as a rock star. Here's the thing. If somebody in their mind cares enough about you that they want to tell you something that they think will help you, then I can't get too mad at that. And I don't have to necessarily agree with it. I don't necessarily have to do it, but I can't get mad at somebody because they're trying to look out for somebody else. They may not know that, that's not really a thing. And it's not, some people don't realize that pushing their ideas or their beliefs on other people, it's not 21st century polite. It's kind of pushy. But having said that, we're lucky to have people that even know who Andy is and care enough about him to send letters and mail to us. So whatever the reason is, we're thankful and we're grateful as parents, and Andy is as an artist, to have the amount of fans that he has. It's just incredible, really.
I mean, I would like to know, because you've been involved with, since day one with the BVB Army, and you have seen many of us grow, and I would love to know your personal opinion on what makes the BVB Army unique and stand out from all other fan bases.
That's a great point, Nikki. That really is. I've seen people who were like, okay, I'll give you an example of a person that you guys all know, but I saw her sitting outside of the Whiskey on the very first Blackville tour. And there's a picture of her and Andy when she was, I don't know how old she was at the time. But if you've seen the Legion of the Black movie, if you've seen Coffin, if you've seen Goodbye Agony, Alicia Vigil, who is a bass player in her own band, Vigil of War, and was a bass player, I believe, for Dragon Force, I think, for a while. She was a touring musician with them. She was sitting outside of the Whiskey with her on the ground when we pulled up in my car and another car with a trailer hitch the very first time Blackville ever played there, waiting to meet Andy. And there was a picture of her and Andy outside of there. And I've watched her literally grow from a little kid who was sitting out there waiting for this band in 2009 in December to being a musician who a band like Dragon Force wanted to be. She was in Paradise City recently. If you know who Nita Strauss is, the guitarist who used to be with Alice Cooper, if you've seen Paradise City, you know the girl whose dad is the bar owner.
Yeah.
And she's the guitarist. Well, the bass player, if you go back and watch that who's with her, that's Alicia, the same girl who plays Eve in Legion of the Black movie, and is in the Coffin movie. She's one of the skeleton or the girls, and and she's also in Goodbye Agony. She's the girl who goes with the guy who was in the Knives and Pens video, the same kid who's not. If you've ever watched Goodbye Agony, the guy who's the same kid from the Knives and Pens video is that guy.
Did not know that. Hello.
I heard stories about that, but I was like,
there's no way.
Oh my God. Andy puts Easter eggs in everything.
Oh my God.
That's one of the things that I always tell people about watching the music videos. I'd always say, if you just give those music videos like a once over or twice over and you're like, oh, I've seen it, you really haven't seen it, because Andy puts little Easter eggs and little gems and things in the videos that if you watch it a few times, you go, wait a second, I remember that person from this video and they were there or whatever. So that guy's actually been in 3 Blackville videos, the guy from Knives and Pens. If you look in the Perfect Weapon video. He's in there too,
Yes.
and
Yeah.
you him holding the notebook.
Notebook, yeah.
And in Coffin, you see the notebook. He's not in the video, but the notebook's in there. Then if you watch Goodbye Agony when they go to the casket, when they go down by the water or by the river or whatever, and the notebook is turned into ash. You have to go back and watch Goodbye Agony. That's all I can tell you. But watch, he comes looking for Eve, who is in Legion of the Black, and also to make it easy, because of music video, in the end video, she's the girl who's wearing the mask and everything else. And he goes looking, and he knocks on the window, and she looks at him, and she recognizes him because he's Andy. Basically, he's boyhood Andy, because that's what he's playing in the Knives and Pens video. He's playing Andy as a middle schooler, 8th grader, 9th grader at the school Andy went to. Look, that thing that's on the locker, that's very similar to shit that Andy had on his locker that he had to rip off. Except they put shit in Andy's locker. They put like tuna fish and stinky stuff and everything else. That's all real. I drive by that middle school every once in a while, and almost every time I drive by it, I think of Knives and Pens. That's real. I know it's funny to think about it because it's so many years ago. But when Andy made that video, that was very personal for him, and when we saw it, it was like, oh my God, that's it. That's what you were going through not that long ago. Well, I think the one thing about about BVB fans is they really care about every aspect of the band, not just the songs, which they care about, obviously the music. No other fan base in 21st century rock, and I always go back to that, because other bands have done this way back in the past. Kiss in particular is notorious for merchandising and having these type of things, but Black Veil fans would be upset if the album didn't come with tchotchkes and cool merch and things that you can get and awesome tees and just a variety of different things. There are other fan bases that they're not as they can take their band or they can leave it. And when the band's not making music, they just go get music from another band. And then they wait for that band to come back out. And then the pressure of that, and this is good pressure, not bad pressure, but there's pressure on Black Veil to keep coming out with stuff, production, which is why I always think it's funny when people say, well, Black Veil took a hiatus. And I'm like, well, no, they never did. There's never been a year other than 2020 where I'm talking about touring from a standpoint, but there's never been a time where product for the fans hasn't been available the entirety of the band. I mean, you got to remember that Andy Black, the people who went to go see Andy Black are the same people who go see Black Veil Brides. And there was, from all the way back to, go back to We Stitch These Wounds, and then you go to Set the World on Fire, and then you go to, Wretched and Divine. That time period is like literally a 4-year time period. You got 3 albums, and you got about 7 tours that were in there. Okay. You got a movie, you got an EP that's got an extended cut music video. It's got 2 covers. You got 2 songs that were on movie soundtracks during that time frame. You then have 4 that's about to come out. You get that. And while that's occurring, Andy's simultaneously recording the first Andy Black album with Feldman. They do a live concert video that becomes the #1 selling concert video, knocks off The Who and knocks off Rolling Stones as far as the #1 selling concert video at that time. And then that takes you into 2016. That whole thing takes you into 2016 because they tour all through 2015. So now we're talking about 5 consecutive years. Andy Black comes out in the spring of 2016. It goes not only to 2016, but it then overlaps touring into 2017. All right. At the end of 2017, Black Veil starts releasing music and stuff from The Outsider. I mean, from Veil, including The Outsider, which was released prior to that. That takes you all the way into 2018, he's now recording with Feldy on the next The Ghost of Ohio. But Andy took an incredible amount of shit from people for both Andy Black and The Ghost of Ohio, because they thought Andy wanted to be a solo artist. And they thought Andy wanted to leave Black Veil. He didn't want to be in Black Veil. Andy started Black Veil. He birthed it. He raised it as a parent would. It's his band that he would never want to leave. And he loved that band. He had to find something else to do because he needed to make, an income. He needed to make money so he could pay his bills and, and do his thing and continue to make music. I also think that Andy Black is going to be looked upon in years to come as one of the best things that could happen to Black Veil, because Andy found his voice. I mean, he really found the singing style and the voice that he now incorporates into the stuff that you're hearing on The Phantom Tomorrow. There's no doubt in my mind that having the ability to go off and try different styles and play around with stuff musically that he was able to do with those two albums has made him a significantly better writer and a much better singer. I think you can hear that. I mean, you guys know, you've been fans for a long time. His range is better than it's ever been. Mm-hmm. At a time where as you're getting older, maybe because he was 18 years old when he hit the public consciousness, and 16 when he started the band. At an age where maybe your voice is getting lower, Andy's range is getting higher because he learned how to sing. He's been around people like Feldy who have helped him. I think it's been beneficial to the band, and I think it's going to be beneficial to the fans moving forward. The band's music is going to be even better than it ever was, and it's at a great time for it to happen. In rock and roll in particular, you don't get any level of respect or any level of credibility from most rock people until you've been around for about 10 years. We're seeing Black Veil getting radio airplay that they never got before. And it's because you could dismiss them for the first 5 years, I guess. You could dismiss them every time they won an award. You could dismiss them every time that they would have a Billboard top 10 charting album. You could say whatever you want, but ultimately over time, those kind of people just throw up their hands and go, okay, I guess they're all right. And then that's the end of it. Now, of course, they don't want to be just all right, but what I've discovered about the Black Veil fan base is that they're relentless. No pun intended with the Paradise City. But they're just relentless. This is the one thing about the Black Veil fan base that I, above all else, that I really value. And that is, they get it. They understand. They want their band to be successful. So they go to the concerts. They buy the tickets. They buy the merchandise. They buy the magazine. It's not a coincidence that Kerrang! Magazine had Andy on the cover of 26 magazines out of 52 issues one year. That's not a coincidence. I know that because I talked to the people from Kerrang! When I went on a press tour with the band in London. And they came and saw me and they said, if we put him on the cover or we have a story with them, our sales go up. That's not me bragging or the band bragging. That's a fact. The number one selling issue in the history of alternative press magazine was Andy. When he had the issue, it was about his life and his family and everything. Who is Andy Biersack? I probably got it on my wall over here. I got it over there. And so now, alternative press got bought out by somebody else. They're no longer under Mike Shea. They've gone in a completely different direction. We may never see Black Veil on the cover of that magazine ever again. If not, we'll see him on the cover of Kerrang! And we'll see him on the cover of Rock Sound. Outburn. There's guys have heard of Outburn? It's kind of a new one. It's kind of a new rock magazine. It's not really new, but it's out there, and you can buy it at like Barnes and Noble, and you can buy it at And I'd always tell people, I'd be like, it's not. You can't say that the reason Black Veil wins awards is because it's a popularity contest, because that's what it is. Everything in entertainment business is a popularity contest. If you're not popular in the entertainment industry, you're not in the entertainment industry. It's just the way it is, unless you're working behind the scenes. You know what I'm saying? But if you're an artist and you're not a popular artist, you're a starving artist. That's just the way it is. Think about all the awards that band won, fan voted awards during the first 5 to 6 years of the band, particularly when awards were much more prevalent than they are now. Magazines aren't what they used to be as far as putting that kind of stuff out there. There aren't any award shows. We used to have 2 award shows that Black Veil would go to, whether it was the Kerrang Awards and the Golden Gods at the same time. And then it was the Kerrang Awards and the APMAs. But now they don't have any of those. There are no such thing. Maybe the Kerrang Awards still exist, but they don't make as big a deal out of them as they used to. But Black Veil used to be, and that's all about the fans. When people were making fun of them, including other bands, Black Veil fans would come to the shows, even when Black Veil wasn't the headliner. And that wasn't very long, but there was a time where Black Veil was on a couple of tours where they weren't the headliner. Their fans would show up full war paint, full makeup. Who does that? If you're not all in, Black Veil's fans are very hospitable. They are not angry. They don't boo other artists. They don't boo other bands. People doing stuff with Black Veil themed, art and costumery and cosplay, if you will, or whatever you want to call it, is something that you don't normally get. And I say I'm all for it. If people want to go to the shows on the In Between tour or any other show that comes up after that, that's a BVB headlines, and if they want to dress like the what are they called? The Phantom tomorrow, I call them the Scarlet Cross Knights, or the Knights of the Scarlet Cross, or whatever. Or they want to dress like the band in the different videos with the jackets, or the CC's always wearing some kind of a vest.
Yeah.
Free his arms up. And I don't think there's any other band that you can name right now that would have that kind of a crossover between hard rock and kind of like the comic book world. And I think that's what makes Black Veil as a band and the fans so unique. They're willing to embrace what Andy's always said, which is I think it rings true with a lot of people. And he's like, I'm not cool. I've never been cool. I was the comic book guy. I was the guy who, the nerdy guy. I'm not the party guy. I'm not the social guy. I'm not the guy that wants to go to the bars and drink with other people and blah, blah, blah. He goes, I was just the guy who wanted to get lost in my Batman comics, or who wanted to be a rock star, not because I wanted girls, but because I wanted to look like Gene Simmons, or, what I'm saying, and Kiss. Those are the things that he wanted. And he thinks that there's a lot of people that are like that. They feel more comfortable, being home with their friends or doing stuff with their close friends or their family than they do going out in front of other people all the time. That doesn't mean that we're antisocial all the time, but for the most part, there's a lot of people that are just as happy to be around the people that they trust and they feel like are a family than going out and trying to impress other people with what kind of clothes they wear and everything.
Right.
I mean, isn't that nice to not have to worry about that stuff? I'm a 58-year-old man who's wearing rock tour t-shirts all the time.
You do what you do to makes you happy, honestly.
It does make you happy. I had to actually brush and comb my hair today. Normally just a baseball hat every day now. So.
Yeah.
We were discussing how you're always changing your @ symbol on Twitter, like the little username.
Is there a reason for that? Is that what you want to know why?
Yeah, I was
curious.
Curious why you do that.
Did I give that away? I don't know if I want to give it away.
I mean, mystery.
There's a reason, and I'll tell you what it is. When Black Veil started getting radio airplay recently, like within this year, whatever, I knew I was going to have a presence supporting and getting other people to show appreciation for them playing the music. Mm-hmm. And what I didn't want is I didn't want to handle that in a picture that automatically made it obvious to the radio stations and other people that I was related to Andy. I just thought it was better for the fan base and for the band if the people that follow me and they know who I am. So it's not like if I change my name, they're still going to see me and they're still going to get my emails. They're going to put it 2 and 2 together. They're going to know it's me anyway. And so that's fine. I spent a lot of time going to a radio station that says, hey, we're playing the Black Veil song, whatever. And I'll give them a thumbs up or a devil horns or whatever. And then I'll send them a picture of the band in concert or a really cool picture of the band. For anybody who doesn't know who Black Veil Brides is, I want them to see in the thread. I want other people who are checking that to see a picture of Black Veil Brides. Every time I get an opportunity to do that, I do that. So I scour the internet and I look up all different kinds of concert shots and pictures of Black Veil, and then I'll keep them. And then I'll drop a bunch of them because I've used them, and then I'll go grab some more and do that kind of stuff. So that's kind of the long and the short of it. I never told anybody that. But yeah, that's the reason that I do that, is because I think it's important that it's the focus be on the band and on other fans supporting the band. And I don't want to differentiate myself from any other fan when it comes to supporting the band. Those who know it's me is great. Those who don't, that's cool too. I'm fine with that. I don't really need people to know that I'm Andy's dad. I think if you look at my profile and you see 125,000 people are following me, you probably think to yourself, okay, he must have some connection to the band. Like, you guys follow rock. Nikki, when did you start listening to rock music? How old were you?
Oh, I was very young. I have to say, my parents were showing me Poison when I was around 4 or 5 years old.
Yep, I took Andy to see Poison one time. I took him to see Kiss and Aerosmith and Poison and Motley Crue and pretty much every band of that time period at the same place he wound up playing the Warped Tours. When Black Veil was I think they were the main stage act on 3 of the 4 Warped Tours that they did. So the only time they weren't a main stage act was in 2011. But most of the time he would play on the same stage as the bands that he used to see, those bands growing up, which was always fun for me as a dad to see him playing on that same stage. Your parents then were listening to the kind of music that I was listening to,
Mm-hmm.
and they introduced you to that. But because you guys are younger, that your generation, you're not normal. I hate to say it, but you're not normal when it comes to listening to music. I think there are bands out there that people have been listening to for 10 years or more in hard rock or rock that have already saved rock and roll. So I don't think that we need anybody to come along and save it for us.
Mm-hmm.
I think that we've talked about a band here for the last X amount of time that's been doing pretty damn well. Every album that they've ever had charted on Billboard. Every single album, including Andy's solo albums, have been in the top 20. 5 of the 7 albums that I just mentioned have been in the top 10. They got a number 8 radio single. They got a number 9 Billboard charting single right now. I'm not saying that it's everything that you'd ever want, but I think if you carve out a career where you got 11 years and every time you play a show, you're playing to 98% capacity your entire career, at least as a headliner, where you could keep statistical data on that. I don't know what the numbers were back in the early days because we didn't have that scan thing that they use now to figure out percentage of the house, the total. They figure out the capacity and they figure out how many people were there at the event, and then they figure out the percentage. And Black Veil has been and Andy Black have been at the above 95% rate capacity on average for almost the entirety of the band or entirety of Andy's career. So they're doing something right.
They are.
Andy's never jumped on trends. He's never followed anybody else. He's been a leader in that stuff. He's always a step ahead. The way the band looks, their image, their sound, everything else is completely and totally original. It doesn't depend upon anybody else. The one thing that you definitely see with the Black Veil fan base, and this goes back to what Nikki asked, is the level of encouragement and support that the fans give one another online, particularly in Twitter, is amazing. And it's one of those things where I will follow a thread sometimes of a fan talking to another fan, and they'll tag me, and I don't even know if they realize they're tagging me because I may have started the original one, and they'll just include, and people will say, "Oh, I'm sorry that I tagged you," and I'm like, "No, it's really cool. I love the fact that you're supporting this other person who's just another fan, like I am, like we all are, and that you're saying positive things about their art, or you're saying positive things about their drawing, or you're saying positive things, or their photos, or whatever it is." I think that's how we lift each other up. Mm-hmm. I saw Nikki doing her modeling, and I wanted to be a person, not Andy's dad, but a person who said, "You're really good at this and you should keep going for it. And I hope that you succeed. And if there's anything I can do to try to help you, let me know." Because I just feel like I can't ask people to be incredibly supportive of what my son and his band do if, when they have some successes or they have things that they're proud of and they share it with us and I see it, if I don't recognize that and acknowledge it and say, "Good for you, and I hope that you succeed, and I hope other fans support you." I think that's kind of one of the reasons that when you go to a Black Veil show, it's more than likely that you're going to run into somebody that you have talked to on social media and that you feel like even though you've never seen them in person before.
On that note, thank you so much for joining us for this episode here for our channel, and hopefully down the road we'll get to chat with you another time with maybe some other BVB fans on whatever topic we decide or figure out on that video. So
thank you, Nikki. Good luck with the show. I'm really excited for what you guys are doing. Hearts to Hearts.
Yes.
And I'm really excited. I think you guys are going to be fantastic at this. And I look forward to seeing all the episodes.
Fingers crossed.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Bye.
Well, guys, thank you so much for joining for our episode again. Please subscribe to our channel. Both of our social media links are down below. And hopefully by this video is up, we have figured out a game plan, a form to have you guys, the audience, the BVB Army, to submit your ideas. If you want to be in a show or be in an episode, I should say, contact us. We're hopefully by then we'll have something figured out, or some type of form to figure out. So.
Yeah, and also with the challenges too, definitely send in ideas for that, for any kind of activity for everyone to get together and have fun doing.
If that is one of us being blindfolded and instructing another to do BVB or paint, okay, or like 2 or 3 minutes to quickly put on our concert outfits or whatever, or crazy hair, whatever you name it, guys. But please submit all your ideas, challenges, and you definitely want to be a part of any episodes where hopefully we have something figured out, a form for you guys can fill it out, and then we can get in contact with you and figure out something for you guys. So
yes, it will be fun.
Mm-hmm. All right, guys, that is it for this episode. We will see you next week with another new episode of BVB Army's Hearts to Hearts. So bye, guys.
Bye.